The invitation had come weeks earlier. Formal, polite, carefully worded. A public ceremony honoring community leaders, held in a large hall just outside the city center. Speeches, dinners, photographs. The kind of event designed to signal unity without forcing anyone to examine it too closely. By the time Muhammad Ali agreed to attend, the organizers already knew what his presence would mean. Visibility. Ali never treated visibility lightly. The night of the event, the hall filled early. Long tables dressed in white. Soft lighting. Men in suits. Women in formal dresses. Everything was orderly. On the surface, Ali arrived without ceremony. No announcement. No spotlight. Just a quiet entrance and a few heads turning as recognition spread. Ali greeted people respectfully. Shook hands. Listen. He didn't command the room. He allowed it to notice him. The program moved smoothly at first. Introductions. Applause. Measured speeches. Ali was scheduled to speak later, but not last. That mattered. Midway through the evening, something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. A server leaned in close to one of the organizers. Whispered something. The organizer's expression changed. Not alarmed, but tightened. Ali noticed. He always noticed. The organizer excused himself, walked quickly toward the back of the hall, then returned moments later with 2 security personnel. They didn't approach Ali yet. They stood nearby, watching. Ali didn't ask questions. He waited. Minutes passed. The program continued. But the room felt thinner now, like something had been removed. Eventually, the organizer approached Ali. Not publicly, quietly. He told Ali there had been a message. Not inside the hall. Outside. Ali listened carefully. Didn't interrupt. Didn't react. The message wasn't handwritten. It wasn't shouted. It had been delivered through a call. Deliberate. The organizer explained that the caller had claimed affiliation with a hate group. That the message was a warning. Not a plan. A threat. The implication was clear enough. Ali's presence was not welcome, and someone wanted him to know it. Ali asked one question. He asked whether the threat was specific. The organizer hesitated, then said no. Ali nodded. The organizer asked what Ali wanted to do. He offered options. Increased security. A discreet exit. A delay. Ali thanked him, then said he'd like a moment. Ali didn't stand up. He didn't leave the table. He didn't gather attention. He simply sat and thought. Ali understood the mechanics of intimidation. He'd lived inside them for years. Threats rely on urgency, on fear, on isolation. Ali wasn't isolated. He was in a room full of people, in a public building, with witnesses. Ali asked another question. He asked if the threat had been shared with law enforcement. The organizer said yes. Authorities were aware, monitoring the situation. Ali nodded again, then asked if anyone else knew. The organizer said only a few. They hadn't wanted to cause panic. Ali looked around the hall, at the conversations, at the laughter that hadn't yet noticed what hovered just outside the walls. Ali said something quietly, something that reframed everything. He said secrecy was doing the threat a favor. The organizer frowned, asked what Ali meant. Ali said threats lose power when they're contained. They gain power when people are protected from knowing they exist. The organizer didn't respond immediately. He was thinking. Ali didn't pressure him. He simply said he wasn't going to leave. That sentence landed heavily. The organizer asked if Ali was sure. Ali said yes. He said leaving would turn a warning into a success. Ali didn't say this angrily. He said it matter-of-factly. The organizer asked what Ali wanted instead. Ali said he wanted the truth acknowledged, not dramatized. Acknowledged. Ali stood up. Not abruptly, deliberately. The organizer tensed. Security shifted. Ali raised a hand slightly, not to command, to reassure. He said he wasn't about to make a speech. He wasn't going to alarm anyone. Ali walked calmly toward the front of the hall. The microphone. Conversations faded. People noticed movement. Ali's presence drew attention without demanding it. Ali stood at the microphone, looked out, waited for quiet. He didn't mention the hate group. Not yet. He thanked the organizers, spoke briefly about community, about responsibility, about why public gatherings matter. His tone was steady, measured. Then Ali paused. He said something that made people lean in. He said there had been a reminder that night. That unity isn't assumed. It's tested. The room went still. Ali didn't raise his voice. He didn't name names. He said that when people try to intimidate others quietly, it's because they fear being seen. Ali looked around the room. At every table. At every face. He said this building belonged to everyone inside it. Not to fear. Not to threats. Ali thanked the crowd. Stepped back. No panic followed. No shouting. No scrambling. But something had changed. People whispered. Security repositioned. Phones buzzed. Outside the building, the situation shifted. Law enforcement presence increased. Quietly. Efficiently. Whoever had made the call realized something quickly. The message had not stayed private. Ali returned to his seat. Calm. Unbothered. The organizer leaned toward him. Whispered that the authorities had updated him. The caller had gone silent. No further communication. Ali nodded. The event continued. Dinner was served. Speeches resumed. But the room was different now. Not afraid. Aware. Ali remained until the end. He didn't slip out early. He didn't hide. When the event concluded, people stood. Chairs moved. Conversations swelled. Ali rose. Security closed in gently. As Ali walked toward the exit, the crowd parted instinctively. Not in fear. In respect. Outside, vehicles waited. Lights flashed faintly. Ali paused at the doorway. Looked back once. He hadn't changed the event. He'd changed the equation. What had been meant as intimidation had been turned into exposure. And that exposure would not end at the door. Because whatever had been delivered to threaten Ali, something else would be leaving the building with him. Something far more powerful than fear. What left the building that night was not Muhammad Ali. That's the detail most people got wrong later. Ali did not flee. He did not retreat. He did not disappear quietly into a car to be rushed away. He walked out exactly the way he had walked in. But something else left with him. And it mattered far more. Outside the hall, the air felt different. Cooler. Sharper. Law enforcement presence had increased, but not in a way that drew attention. Vehicles were positioned strategically. Officers stood where they could see without being seen. This wasn't a response born of panic. It was containment. Ali paused briefly on the steps. Not because he was hesitating. Because he understood moments like this close themselves best when they're allowed to finish properly. Inside the hall, people were still talking. Not nervously. Thoughtfully. What Ali had done hadn't created fear. It had created awareness. The threat, once spoken aloud, even indirectly, had lost its leverage. It no longer lived in whispers or private calls. It no longer belonged to whoever had sent it. It belonged to the room. And rooms full of witnesses are dangerous places for intimidation to survive. Law enforcement confirmed something quietly to the organizer as Ali stood outside. The number that had called in the threat was no longer active. No follow-up messages. No escalation. Just silence. Ali was told this as he reached his car. He listened. Nodded. Said nothing. He didn't treat the silence as victory. He treated it as confirmation. Because Ali understood something fundamental. Groups that rely on fear don't like attention. They thrive on shadows, not light. By choosing to acknowledge the threat publicly, but without spectacle, Ali had denied it both outcomes it needed. Secrecy. Reaction. In the days that followed, the story circulated. Not in screaming headlines. In conversations. In editorials. In quiet discussions about what leadership actually looks like under pressure. Some people criticized Ali. They said he'd been reckless. That he'd endangered others by not leaving immediately. Ali responded to none of it. Because people who misunderstand courage always think it looks louder than it is. Behind the scenes, the consequences were unfolding. Law enforcement continued investigating the threat, not because Ali demanded it, but because public acknowledgement had created obligation. Once a threat enters daylight, institutions must respond. The hate group never claimed responsibility. They never followed up. They never escalated. And that absence said everything. Weeks later, a journalist asked Ali privately if he'd been afraid that night. Ali didn't answer immediately. Then he said something simple. He said fear doesn't disappear when you run from it. It just follows more quietly. That answer didn't make headlines, but it stayed with the person who heard it. The event organizers reflected later that they had expected Ali to prioritize his own safety above all else. What they hadn't expected was that Ali would prioritize everyone's safety by refusing to let fear operate privately. That distinction mattered. Ali hadn't stayed to be brave. He'd stayed to be clear. Months later, someone who had been in the room that night wrote Ali a letter, not thanking him for courage, thanking him for restraint. They said that watching him speak without naming the threat, without inflaming the moment, had taught them something. That strength doesn't always escalate. Sometimes it stabilizes. Ali never replied to the letter. Not because he didn't care. Because he didn't believe moments like that required acknowledgement. Ali moved on, as he always did. But the people who had intended to intimidate him did not. They retreated. Quietly. Completely. They never attempted another public gesture. Never tested that boundary again. Because the lesson had been delivered clearly. Threats don't work on people who refuse to hide them. Years later, when Ali spoke about hatred in a different context, he said something that echoed that night. He said hate wants you alone. It wants you reacting. It wants you silent or screaming. He said the most dangerous thing you can do to hate is refuse all three. That night at the public event, Ali had done exactly that. He hadn't isolated himself. He hadn't reacted emotionally. He hadn't stayed silent. He had spoken just enough. What left the building with Ali wasn't fear. It was exposure. Exposure follows you home. Fear doesn't. The hall returned to normal the next day. Tables cleared. Chairs stacked. Lights dimmed. But the lesson stayed. People who had attended never forgot the moment they realized intimidation had limits. Not because of force, but because of presence. Muhammad Ali hadn't defeated a hate group that night. That was never the goal. He had done something far more effective. He had made them irrelevant. And that is why the threat ended there. A hate group threatened Muhammad Ali at a public event. They expected him to leave quietly, to be managed, to be moved. Instead, Ali let something else walk out with him. Visibility, witnesses, clarity. And once those things leave a building together, fear has nowhere left to stay.